we're gonna have a very good time because all of those talks are more amazing than the next one or the previous one, whatever, which is a good challenge always. And the first one we're gonna start with is Jeff, which at the beginning, before putting Speakers Union, I had put Cat Fancier because of the story of maybe you can speak about your cats. Maybe you will speak about your cats, I don't know, in your talk. So Jeff is coming for us all the way from Seattle, right? Mm-hmm. And I think it's a good time to start, actually. We're even 2 minutes earlier, so if you want to give him a round of applause. Jeff Watkins, ladies and gentlemen. Everybody has with you?
Yeah, so the reason I was a cat fancier is I have 4 cats, which obviously makes my house a little bit furry at times. So I hope everybody's had their caffeine and a decent breakfast. If not, it's probably too late. Because I'm going to ask you to be a little bit imaginative this morning. And it's probably fair warning that I'm not going to give a technical talk. I don't give technical talks. But I want you to imagine yourself not here at SwiftConf. I want you to imagine yourself at an all-pause meeting of a company that sells pet food. So good morning. It's an absolute pleasure to be here. My name is Jeff Watkins, and I can remember with extreme fondness my university days with your founders, Charlie Gooddoggerson and Angus McScratchums. I can remember hanging out in their dorm room, playing video games, pulling pranks, and complaining about all sorts of things, not the least of which was the terrible, terrible state of food that was available to Charlie and Angus, because prepackaged pet food was just terrible, just awful, just blobby, sort of gray, mushy, yuck, wow, just revolting. And Charlie suggested one afternoon that the only way that they were going to get actually decent food is they would probably have to make it themselves. And of course, as university students, we all thought that was just the craziest darn thing, because make food ourselves, that was what other people did, right? You go out to eat and you buy it in the grocery store. But as you all know, because you work here, not 2 years after Charlie and Angus graduated, they founded the Füd Company. And their goal was to provide really high quality food for dogs and cats and all sorts of animals. Only the best ingredients, organic meats, organic grains, using the best processing techniques. They wanted to provide the sort of high quality experience that humans got every day for animals, because they felt quite rightly that animals deserved exactly that. Now, their first product, dog food, sort of, scratched an itch. And it took them a year to get the product off the market, off the ground. But sales initially were, a little bit okay, but they took off because, again, they were using high quality ingredients, the best processing techniques, and the market was really, really excited. And actually, after initial release of dog food, it took 2 more years before the Füd Company was able to release dog food to enough quantity to meet demand, which is really what any product company is looking for, right? You have so much demand that you can barely meet it. Now, the problem with that, obviously, as you can all recall, is that it's sort of delayed diversification. They had to stick with one product for a little bit longer than they wanted. But 3 years later, after they initially released dog food, they were able to diversify into cat food. This sort of delivered on the original dream of having quality food for more than just dogs. Now, thanks to the strong brand recognition that the Füd Company enjoyed, cat food started off with really good, strong sales. But as you all know, it wasn't a great lasting sales trend. They sort of tapered off and didn't go so great. And the reviews for cat food, they were terrible. About the best that could be said for cat food were that your customers thought you repackaged dog food for cats. Some of your customers were not so kind. Many of the reviews can't even be repeated in public. What went wrong? How could a company so dedicated to customer satisfaction produce a product that quite frankly sucked? Well, that was what Charlie and Angus wanted to find out. And so they asked me to come help them because they thought maybe a fresh set of eyes would help. And I sort of demurred because I don't really know anything about cat food or dog food. I'm not really the target market, right? I don't eat dog food or cat food. I don't eat dogs or cats either, but you know, it's not really my thing. But I do agree that a fresh set of eyes might help. And I thought, I'm probably not going to see anything that they haven't already seen, but I'll start at the top because that's the best place to begin. Where did things go wrong? And I wanted to look first at the process by which the team that launched the cat food line was hired. Beginning with the two primary candidates. Now, as you all recall, there were an initial series of candidates, about 7 or 8, but ultimately it came down to 2 primary candidates. The first was Felix Mouse Warrior. And he was an ideal candidate because he was the VP of marketing for Chew Cat, one of the leading manufacturers of cat food. Now, I would have thought this was a perfect candidate. His chief achievement at Chew Cat was to grow sales of their cat food line by 300% over a 2-year period. That is a really remarkable achievement by any stretch of the imagination. And he didn't do it alone, because you can't as a vice president. He did it with a team of cats and dogs. Really, that's the sort of thing that anyone should be proud of. The second primary candidate was William Plum. And he was the creative director for Bouncy Balls. And in 2016, their team delivered 6 brand new chew toys and balls to the market, all critically acclaimed. Quite an achievement in its own right. Now, as you know, the Füd Company chose William Plum to lead the cat food line. Now, I'm not qualified to make a decision as to who was the better candidate. But what interested me were some of the comments made about the individual candidates. About William Plum, the interviewers said that he had a friendly gaze, and he had a commanding bark, and that they'd really love going for a walk with him. Sounds like a fantastic dog, doesn't he? But it's perfect. Great candidate. On the other hand, about Felix, the comments weren't so great. One interviewer said, when the mailman came around, Felix totally ignored him. We suggested going for a walk over lunch, and he just wasn't interested. Overall, the interviewers felt that Felix wasn't a cultural fit. Now, this surprised me, because while I'm not an employee of the Füd Company, I kind of thought that I had a good grasp on the culture. I mean, Charlie and Angus are some of my best friends, and we talk all the time about the Füd Company. And I had a pretty good understanding of what it meant to be an employee of the Füd Company. But I wanted to make sure that I hadn't been misled. And so I called them, and I said, Charlie, Angus, fill me in here. What does it mean to be a cultural fit? And they spoke at length about honesty and integrity and doing what's best for the company and the employees and the customer. You know what they never mentioned? Gazes, walks, or anything you might do with a mailman. So this whole not a cultural fit thing, that just seems like a weaselly way to say, I don't want to hire a goddamn cat. And that makes sense. Because if you look at your workforce, if you look around at your neighbor, only 13% of you are cats. And that's kind of crushing when you think about the fact that 50% of your customers are cats. 50% of your products are aimed at cats. Now, I want to share with you 2 examples of other groups that have similarly non-diverse workforces and the challenges that they encountered. The first is the American automobile industry when they were designing the airbag. Now, back in the early 90s, the automobile industry decided that they were going to solve the problem of low-speed collisions in automobiles. And they figured that this was a problem that they could solve reliably. They had the technology, they knew what they were doing, they were going to solve it. They came up with the specifications that the goal was to prevent injuries to a driver that was 175 centimeters tall, weighing 75 kilograms, sitting roughly 25 centimeters from the steering wheel. The reason they came up with those criteria is because that represents the average man. You're probably saying to yourself, why did they choose the average man? Because they had no women on the team. The engineering team was composed entirely of men. So they developed an airbag that worked perfectly for the average man. They tested it on crash test dummies that represented the average man. They deployed it into automobiles, sold them to their customers. And when women who are shorter on average and lighter on average and tend to sit closer to the steering wheel on average, got behind the wheel and got in an accident, sometimes those airbags would deploy with so much force they would hit them in the face and snap their necks. They literally were killing their customers because they didn't have any women on their engineering team. Now, clearly that wasn't what they intended. Clearly, they didn't intend to kill their customers. And they fixed the airbag, but not before having killed some customers. I'm not saying that your cat food is killing any cats. You're not there yet. Yet. That's the automotive industry. They're not alone. The software industry is rushing headfirst into adopting machine learning and artificial intelligence to provide all sorts of fantastic new technologies to our applications, which will make our lives much, much better. But they're no better than the automotive industry when it comes to having a diverse engineering team. Unfortunately, a great example of this is Google. They have some of the smartest engineers. But regrettably, they're no better than most other software companies when it comes to hiring a diverse engineering team. A great example is when they built a fantastic tool for automatically categorizing photographs. Now, this software was brilliant by all accounts. It was a leader in this technique, which is now pretty commonplace. Except their engineering team was almost entirely white. So when those engineers came to train the software on photographs, because with machine learning, you need an initial corpus of photographs. Those engineers only had photographs of their friends, photographs of their family, and photographs from their adventures. But when Google rolled out that software to its customers, the software didn't know what it was seeing. It had never seen these people before. And it did its best. It hadn't been given the opportunity. It hadn't been given the option to say, I don't know. It was told it had to identify the photo. And had Google any engineers of color, they would have trained the software on their friends and their family and on their adventures. And then the software wouldn't have identified Google's customers in such a horrific way. All because they failed to hire a diverse workforce. Now, I'm not saying that the reason your cat food isn't selling is because you have no cats. I'm not saying that your cat food isn't selling because you hired William Plum instead of Felix Mouse Warrior. That's not what I'm saying. It may be true, but you have a non-diverse workforce. That is a problem. I shared both of these stories, plus a video which is funny on the surface, but incredibly tragic. I'm sure you've all seen it. It's the video of a black man trying to get soap from an automatic soap dispenser. He puts his hand under the soap dispenser and he just waits. Nothing happens. His white colleague comes over, puts his hand under the soap dispenser and gets soap immediately. Black colleague tries again. Nothing. White colleague, soap. Why? You answer. There's no answer for this. The reason is because an engineering team tested this product on themselves, and they didn't have any black engineers. They didn't have any black testers. They didn't necessarily set out to disadvantage anyone. I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt. Most likely, there was one engineer sitting in a lab somewhere, and he was told, we have a client that expects this in 20 minutes. Get it done. He tested it on himself. It worked. He shipped it. So Charlie and Angus, you know them as well as I do, they are nothing if not bold. And their solution shocked me. They said there will be no more dogs hired at the Füd Company until there are an equal number of cats working here. Now you may be saying to yourself, where the hell are we going to find all these cats? We've tried to hire cats in the past and it just hasn't worked. Bullshit. You haven't tried to hire cats. or you would have hired them. Because there are 50% cats out there. Now, you may have to change the way you hire. You may have to apologize for how you have hired in the past. You may have to stop with the Weasley not a cultural fit. If you think someone is dishonest, find out. If you think someone lacks integrity, find out. Don't just leave it at, oh, I don't know. But the truth is, the London School of Economics did a fantastic study of the Swedish Social Democrat Party. And the Social Democrats instituted a very strict gender quota program, which meant that from now on, you had to have an equal number of women running for offices, as well as you had to have an equal number of women in positions of leadership. Now, initially, there was tremendous pushback from men saying, oh, this will never work because we'll have to hire unqualified women, we'll have to run candidates that are unqualified. And what they found was that the men who were doing the most complaining tended to be the men who were least qualified for their own jobs, because they were terrified of having someone come in who was actually qualified. See, there's this myth that A players hire A players, not B players, and that's a lie, because none of us are good at interviewing. I don't care what your job is not natively an interviewer. So when you interview, you're doing a job that is not something you're good at. So innately, you're doing a job that's you're generally poor at. And so you're going to find people who maybe not as good as you. So overall, quality tends to run down. And so you have to explicitly try to hire people who are better than you. And so when you have people who maybe are insecure in their job, they're going to explicitly try to hire people who won't challenge them. And what the London School of Economics found is that with this strict quota in place, for every 10% more women that the Social Democrats brought in, the overall quality of men in the organization actually rose by 3% because they were pushing out the mediocre. Now, you at the Füd Company are probably saying to yourself, we don't have any mediocre dogs. This is not a thing that we have to worry about. But I would submit to you Jack Wigglesbottom. Now, everybody loves Jack. I love Jack. He's a fantastic dog. I took a look at Jack's last couple of performance reviews. Some of the comments were just glowing. Love going for walks with Jack. Nobody catches a ball like Jack. But here's the thing. Jack is a key member of the sales team. What does going for walks or catching a ball have to do with selling cat food or dog food? For the last 6 years, Jack has barely met his quota. So no, Jack is not a good dog. At the best, Jack is a mediocre dog. Now, the goal at the Füd Company is harmony. The goal is to have the ability to service all of your customers, be they cats, be they dogs, but also to have employees that draw from the life experiences and the wisdom of all of your community. Because you don't want to be like the automotive industry and kill your customers. You don't want to be like the software industry and create products that don't serve your customers. I think you know exactly how that turns out. You have a cat food line that just doesn't sell. It's essential that you have a workforce that represents your community, that represents the life experience of the people that you're trying to serve. Because if you don't, you'll miss things. You'll miss crucial experiences and inputs that you won't get any other way. And if you don't get them in the development of your products, it'll be too late once you start testing them. You'll have spent the money, and it'll be too late once you discover you built the wrong product or designed the wrong food or crafted the wrong tastes. So thank you so much for enduring my little whimsy of imagination. As you can tell, this is about cats and dogs, but it's really about so much more than that. We as software engineers and product developers and designers have a responsibility to enlarge our community, to stand at the edges of our community with our hands outstretched. And when we see somebody on that outskirts, to draw them in, to bring them in so that we get that life experience, so we get that insight that someone who doesn't look like us, someone who hasn't lived the same experiences that we have, that only they have. Because otherwise, our communities are too small. Otherwise, our communities are too bland. And our communities will build products like that airbag that are deadly, or the photo categorization product that just don't work, or the cat food that doesn't sell the cats. And you know what? Cats will eat pretty much anything. And if you can't sell a cat food to cats, you're doing something wrong. So thanks so much. My name is Jeff Watkins. You can find me online on Twitter at Jeff Watkins or via email at jeff@speakersunion.org. It's been a pleasure chatting with you. If you have questions, I will entertain them, but probably not in a big bass.
So yeah, let's go for question now. That's if you have a question, what we will do is we will repeat it or try to say it again because of the stream and because we don't have a microphone to reach everybody. So questions. I saw a hand before that.
Oh God.
Yeah, I saw one hand, but I don't know. Yeah, shout it.
Like, do you think, understand the formatting, but do you think the solving is like through quota or through this education? Or any other need?
So I will re-say the question, so to say. Do you think the problem is through quota or through? You understood the question. You can reformulate yourself. Because I was trying to reformulate it. How to solve it, basically.
Yeah. So how should you solve the problem? Through quotas or some other means? That's a really tough one because it relies on what's legal in your country. So, and I am not a legal expert. I am a enthusiastic endorser of doing what's right. This is one of the reasons I typically don't take questions. So quotas are probably illegal, for example, in the United States. And one of the things that I endorse is hiring for life experience, hiring for much in the same way that you might hire for functional programming experience, make it essential that you have diversity experience. Make it essential that you are hiring for people who are not exactly like your current staff. Now, obviously, this is a needle that needs to be threaded carefully. So for example, in the United States, that would require very careful HR approval, so that you are not discriminating against any class of individual and saying, oh, I'm a men's rights activist. I feel you are discriminating against white men. Oh God, save me from the white man. And you know what? If you tried to pull that in America, you probably would get lawsuits from men's rights activists. And if you're a large enough company, you might be able to say, neener, neener, sue us. If you're a small company, they would destroy you. For example, there's a reason why when I run my public speaking workshops, the tickets are all one price. I personally pay for the tickets for women and underrepresented minorities because I'm legally obligated to charge the same price for everyone, but nobody can tell me personally that I can't pay for whomever I choose. And if the men's rights activists want to come after me personally, they're not going to get anything. They can sue me personally, but oh well. They can have my cats. I got a really stinky one. Her name is Isabel. Oh God, she's such trouble. Yeah, so that's the best answer I can give you. The laws are different everywhere, and I mean, if it were entirely up to me, I literally would enact a no more dogs. I would ban hiring white men until you don't have too many white men anymore, which I recognize would make my life very difficult if I wanted to get a new job. But that's okay. I've benefited from being a white guy my entire career, and that's totally unfair. Next question.
Well, I have one.
Oh God.
Yeah. It's exactly every time it's like, oh no, not this guy. But if you have another one, just keep it in mind. So I see that from two approaches, the conference organizer and the guy working in this industry.
Yes.
As a conference organizer, I tried also different stuff, but I would agree that I probably didn't try it enough and different stuff and getting in touch with wonderful people like Women Who Code, although I was in touch with them. Now I'm approaching this more from a hiring perspective. I get the impression that a lot of time in our industry, we look, and this is not the case in every company, luckily, we look at people on a pure technical basis, and we don't account all the things around, like the personality of the people enough, or the diversity, obviously. So is it something that you saw that it's in some companies, not all, again, the technicality is like the forefront?
Yeah, so first of all, if you're seeing resumes that have names on them, fire your recruiter. Your resumes should not have names on them because study after study has shown that study after study has shown that the exact same resume with a woman's name on it will get turned down.
Okay.
But a man's name on it will get accepted. The exact same resume with a ethnic sounding name on it will get turned down. But a non-ethnic sounding name will get accepted. So strip the names right off. And there are a lot of things that can be done to be making your recruiting process more fair. But in many cases, they start with the recruiter. Get a better recruiter. get a recruiter that understands that you are trying to make a difference. And, you know, if you are not seeing at least 50% candidates that are women, fire your recruiter. If you are not seeing candidates that are black, fire your recruiter. If you aren't seeing, you know, a good diversity of candidates, what do you think you should do? Fire your recruiter. Fire them all.
What if it's a whole department, was the question. You're firing a lot of people.
You know what? They're not doing their job.
We should hire you to fire people.
Well, they're not doing their job. And I'm a strong believer that if you're not doing your job, you don't have that job for long. Now, by all means, explain to them what their job is, right? You need to explain to them that I expect you to provide me candidates that are diverse. I expect you to go out and make an effort. Don't just wait for them to come to you. Make an effort.
I have a bad news for you. There are a lot of questions coming from the audience. And the good thing of running a pretty small conference is that I know pretty much everybody by name. So Alex had a question on the back first. Shout it. So the question is about affirmative action in the US.
Again, I am not a legal expert.
You will become one today.
I don't think affirmative action means what you think it does. I don't think it gives you the power to do quite what you're suggesting. So what you're getting at is a great example. So if you look at the way that we as an industry craft our job descriptions, we will list 6 to 8 or 10 requirements for the job. You know, you have to have 3 years of Swift, you have to have 10 years of object-oriented programming, you have to have blah, 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 blah. Well, as a guy, I don't even look at those things. It doesn't even occur to me whether or not I meet those requirements. I'm going to apply for the job anyway, because I'm just that arrogant. And I guarantee you almost every man in this room feels the same. Women, on the other hand, will look at their list of requirements and say, I don't meet them all. On average, and I realize I'm generalizing here, they'll look at the list of requirements and they'll say, I don't meet them all, I'm not going to apply. So it's really essential that you list as requirements the requirements of your job. If you have to have 2 years of Swift programming experience, okay. But if you have to have a little bit of Swift programming, that's different than 2 years of Swift programming. If you have to know Swift, that's different than 2 years of Swift programming. If you'd like 2 years of Swift programming, but you're okay with them just knowing Swift programming, see how these are vastly different things. But we as shorthand, because we'd just rather only look at candidates who have 2 years of Swift programming, especially because it makes our recruiters' lives so much easier when it comes to just weeding out candidates. And it makes our lives so much easier when we're interviewing people to be able to say, oh, well, this guy hasn't got 2 years of Swift. And notice what I just did there. This guy, because the only people we ever see are guys, because that's who makes it through our filters. We set our filters, essentially, to only give us men. And then on our websites, what do we put for our company photos and our team activities? Paintball and beer parties and all these things which are really guaranteed to make women feel like they want to come participate.
I remember somebody saying that Star Wars, being a Star Wars fan, was kind of a requirement or whatever, and like I don't like Star Wars.
Yeah.
But it's funny because you mentioned 2 years of Swift, and I always love those headhunters who are looking for somebody having 6 years of Swift. So my answer to them is always, if you find that guy, let me know,
Yeah.
because he probably works at Apple.
So I thought there was a question.
Yeah, Manu.
Right. Sure. So
So I'll repeat the question is, it's hard to take out all the cultural parts of a CV because you really want to hire somebody who is not you. Basically, that's the other way around, which is an interesting question.
So yeah. So the challenge is you shouldn't be looking at the CV to make that decision. You need to actually interview the person. And even if it's you call them up on the phone and you talk to them, or you email them and you get this discussion started, you need to start by essentially treating everybody equally. And maybe there's some other process in there that's because ideally you're getting a diverse number of resumes, right? Let's hope you fired all the bad recruiters, and so now you truly are getting resumes from, and I'm going to be optimistic and say 60% women, because at least in the United States, more women are graduating from college than men. And so pretty soon you should be getting more resumes from women than men. And so you should be getting more women resumes. You ideally should be asking your recruiter to balance a little bit higher on more ethnically diverse resumes. So the resumes you actually see from a technical side of things should be light on the actual requirements so that you're guaranteeing that people will apply. And then you call them, then you talk to them. And then you find out, A, is this a person who's going to be able to do the job? And then you can make that assessment, balancing out what other company, cultural adds do we want? Because most companies, from a culture standpoint, they need to add to their culture rather than just fit it. Because if they fit it, they're all going to look alike. If they add to it, then they're going to look better. Then they're going to look more diverse. Does that kind of answer the question? Yeah, because I don't think you'll ever really find a way to solve it in a algorithmic, easy way that doesn't require picking up the phone. And I know for your average software engineer, that's a terrifying situation. Talking to people, right? I recognize I'm a weird person in that I love picking up the phone and talking to people.
All right, so thanks everybody, Jeff. Give him a round of applause again. Now the next speaker is actually going to be Manu, so if you want to add something into this section, you're going to have to improvise it in your talk. So we'll be back around 11, at 11 actually, so go outside, apparently it doesn't rain, and enjoy speaking to people.